We have another case update in David's murder case involving the unaliving and dismemberment of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. In his most recent court appearance on April 29th, the prosecution filed what is called the People's Brief regarding preliminary hearing evidence. And this brief is basically the prosecution saying, Judge, here is the evidence we intend to present, here is the timeline we believe happened, and here is why we believe this case should move forward. Now, just be prepared, this one needs a very real trigger warning. The details in this brief are disturbing, and I do have to reiterate that they involve the death of a child, alleged SA of a minor, and graphic allegations about what happened after her death. So please take care of yourself while listening. As always, I am a certified law nerd and bona fide non-attorney. This is not legal advice, this is just my interpretation of what I'm reading in the court documents. I will do my best to break it down, so we're going to start in chronological order. The first page begins with what most of us already know. Celeste's remains were discovered in the front trunk of Burke's Tesla on September 8, 2025. There, officers found a black cadaver bag covered in insects, and inside they found a severely decomposed head and torso. A plastic garbage bag underneath contained her dismembered arms and legs. The prosecution also alleges that Celeste's left ring and pinky fingers had been amputated and were not found in the Tesla. And according to the brief, prosecutors believe this was done because one of those fingers had a tattoo of Burke's name. On September 16, 2025, the medical examiner identified Celeste through dental records. The prosecution then starts by saying detectives determined that Celeste and Burke met in January of 2022. At that time, Celeste was only 11 years old. This is the first major timeline marker prosecutors want the court to understand because, according to them, this was not someone he briefly encountered right before her death. They are establishing a connection that goes back years. The brief then alleges that in November of 2023, when Celeste was 13 years old and Burke was 18, they began a sexual relationship. From a legal standpoint, that is very important because prosecutors are using this alleged relationship to explain the nature of their contact, the secrecy around it, and what they believe may have become motive later on. The prosecution says Celeste's family reported her missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department in February and April of 2024. According to the brief, investigators found a phone number in Celeste's phone records that belonged to Burke, and they contacted him in February. The prosecution says Burke claimed he had spoken to Celeste a few days earlier, but said he did not know she was a minor and did not know she had been reported missing. This is super important because the prosecutors are clearly emphasizing that law enforcement later went to Burke's home for a welfare check and informed him that Celeste was a 13-year-old runaway. Here, the prosecution is trying to show notice so that Burke could not later say he had no idea how old she was or that her family was looking for her, because law enforcement had already allegedly told him. Next, they allege that after Celeste returned home in February of 2024, her parents took her phone away. But according to prosecutors, Burke drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high student in Celeste's class $1,000 to give Celeste a phone he had purchased so they could stay in contact. Again, prosecutors are framing this as an active effort to keep communicating with Celeste after her parents had taken her phone and after law enforcement had already been involved. Then throughout 2024, prosecutors say Celeste began spending a significant amount of time with Burke. They allege this included summer weekends at his Hollywood Hills home and traveling with him to Las Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. They also say text messages between Burke and Celeste referenced sex, pregnancy, abortion, and Plan B. The prosecution says there are explicit photographs documenting the relationship, but because those photos would constitute child essay material, the photos themselves will not be shown in court. Instead, prosecutors say they intend to present descriptions of those photographs. And just for the record, just because the photographs may not be displayed in court does not mean prosecutors cannot use evidence related to them. According to the brief, they intend to use those descriptions as evidence of the alleged ongoing relationship. According to the brief, Burke and Celeste broke up in November of 2024, but prosecutors allege they continued to communicate, and text messages suggest they also continued having sexual contact. The brief then begins to lay out what prosecutors believe happened right before Celeste died. They state that April 23, 2025 is likely the date of Celeste's death because that is when all of her cellular activity stopped. They say that the night before, on April 22nd, Burke and Celeste had a lengthy argument over text. According to the brief, the messages showed Celeste was upset over Burke's relationships with other women, and prosecutors allege Burke had led her to believe they had a future together. The brief also says Celeste threatened to disclose damaging information about their relationship. And this is where prosecutors start laying out motive. They note that Burke's first studio album was due to be released on April 25th, 2025, just 2 days later. They also say he had emerging multi-million-dollar career and profitable endorsements coming down the line. So their theory is that Celeste had information that could damage his career, she threatened to expose it, and he killed her to silence her. There are also Uber records. According to the brief, the prosecution says they intend to present records showing Burke ordered an Uber to pick Celeste up from her Lake Elsinore home and bring her to his residence on the night of April 23, 2025. Prosecutors allege that very soon after she arrived, Burke stabbed her multiple times. After Celeste was already dead, Burke allegedly texted and called her phone asking where she was. And prosecutors are basically saying, we do not believe those messages were genuine. They are alleging those messages were calculated and meant to create the appearance that he did not know where she was. The prosecution says he then drove his Tesla north on the 101 freeway to an area near Lake Cachuma, I think that's how you say that, in Santa Barbara County, returned home early the next morning, and then went to a radio interview connected to his album release. They also say he sent 2 more texts to Celeste's phone the next day, but after April 26th, he never tried to contact her again. The prosecution also says they intend to present proof of Amazon purchases and deliveries to Burke's residence, including chainsaws, a body bag, an inflatable pool, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a burn cage. They also say there was a Postmates purchase and delivery of a shovel from Home Depot on April 24, 2025. And prosecutors allege some of those purchases were made under the fake name Victoria Mendez. When we get to the forensic allegations, the brief gets especially graphic. Prosecutors allege that Burke placed Celeste's body into a blue inflatable pool to prevent blood from spilling onto the garage floor. They allege he used a chainsaw and possibly other tools to dismember her body. They also say small blue plastic fragments were found embedded in Celeste's remains, and that forensic testing matched those fragments to the blue inflatable pool allegedly purchased by Burke. The brief says detectives later found evidence in the garage consistent with dismemberment, including multiple linear cuts in the pool and biological samples that tested positive for blood. Prosecutors say DNA testing matched those samples to Celeste. The brief goes on to say that in January of 2026, Celeste's U.S. passport card was found by a Caltrans worker off SR 154 in Santa Barbara County. Obviously, this is relevant because prosecutors say Burke drove to that same general area after Celeste's death on multiple occasions. So, big picture, this brief is the prosecution's roadmap. They are laying out what they believe happened, what evidence they intend to present, as you can see in the evidence section, and why they believe there is enough probable cause for this case to move forward. Again, this is still the preliminary hearing stage, and it is not trial yet. David has entered a plea of not guilty, and the defense has asked for more time to review the evidence, so as of now, the preliminary hearing that was supposed to begin on May 1st has been rescheduled to May 26th. There is a potential trial date set for January of 2027. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them, and as always, I'll keep reading the filings and bring you updates as they come. I'll catch you in the next one.